You're about to unlock something 99% of men never even notice: the hidden weaknesses inside every woman's psychology. Not flaws, not failures, but pressure points, emotional leverage points that shape how she thinks, how she connects, and how she submits, if you understand them. Most men think strength is about what you say, what you flex, and what you prove. But in the game of polarity, the real power is in what you sense and what you withhold. You've been taught to chase logic, but women don't respond to logic. They respond to energy, to tension, to unspoken signals that hit their nervous system before they even form thoughts. And right now, you've probably felt it. You gave her attention. She got colder. You showed vulnerability. She pulled back. You stayed consistent. She lost interest. And you're wondering, why does what they say never match how they act? The answer is in what you'll learn today. 10 invisible emotional vulnerabilities that, when understood, allow you to move like a man she can't decode and can't stop thinking about. This video isn't about manipulation. It's about calibration. Understanding what most men miss, and using it to stop reacting like a boy and start moving like a man. By this end, you'll stop chasing clarity from women and start commanding polarity without saying a word. Don't learn this to control her. Learn this to stop being controlled by what you never saw coming. Number 1. Validation. Craving runs deeper than you think. She posts the photo, but it's not for you. It's for the rush, the quick hit, the little red hearts, the comments, the messages that remind her, I still have it. And you wonder why she seemed fulfilled with you, but still looked elsewhere for affirmation. You thought you were enough, but you didn't realize her need for validation isn't surface level, it's survival. From a psychological standpoint, women are socially wired to seek reflection. From childhood, they're rewarded for being seen, complimented for their beauty, and noticed for their vibe. So as they age, that mechanism doesn't just disappear, it mutates. She might not even realize it. But underneath the confidence is a looping question. Am I still desirable? And that question isn't answered once, it's answered constantly. She says she's not posting it for attention, but she checked her story views 3 times in 10 minutes. And you saw it. Now, here's what most men do when they sense that craving. They feed it. They compliment her, over-reassure her, chase the ghost of her insecurity, hoping it brings her closer. But it doesn't. It drains you, and it leaves her emptier. Because your attention is expected. It doesn't register as a win. But when a man resists the impulse to constantly affirm, when his validation is earned, not free, something flips. She starts wondering what you're seeing that she doesn't. Why are you calm while others chase? Why don't your eyes flinch when she turns up the volume? And that shift? It hits deeper than 1,000 "you're beautiful" texts. Because now you've positioned yourself not as a source of her security, but as the standard she's trying to impress. And that, right there, is the weakness. Not that she wants attention, but she craves it more when you don't offer it freely. So here's the reversal. Don't punish her for seeking validation. Just become the only source she respects getting it from. Number 2. Emotional contrast creates addiction in her mind. She's sitting across from you at dinner. The lighting's perfect, the wine's smooth, your conversation is steady, but she's bored. You're doing everything right, and yet something's missing. That something is emotional contrast, and without it, she feels flat, unmoved, safe, but uninspired. Most men don't realize that emotional tension is to women what physical tension is to men. It creates heat. It creates gravity. And when every interaction is calm, predictable, and polished, her nervous system starts to disengage. She doesn't want chaos, but she needs polarity. It's the feeling of being teased, then understood, of being challenged, then seen, of being slightly off balance, and then caught. Because it's in the shift that she feels the spark, not in the consistency. And that's where emotional contrast becomes powerful. She tells you you're sweet, but she hasn't touched you in 3 days. You know the connection's fading, but you've done nothing wrong. Exactly. That's the problem. You've played it too safe. There's no edge, no pullback, no moment where she doesn't know what's next. From her psychology, a man who never disrupts the emotional rhythm feels too available. He blends into the background noise. She doesn't consciously want drama, but she does want to feel. And without contrast, she feels nothing at all. This is why the men she can't stop thinking about are the ones who move like weather, calm one moment, intense the next, not volatile, not reactive, just deeply attuned to rhythm. You can be kind and unavailable. You can be warm and silent. You can love her and still walk away when needed. When you hold contrast, she becomes addicted to figuring you out, not because you're a game, but because you're alive. And a woman doesn't fall for consistency. She falls for unpredictability held in control. Number 3, her confidence often masks insecurity. She walks in with perfect posture, flawless makeup, the kind of gaze that dares you to underestimate her. She speaks with conviction, laughs with control, and you start to think, she's out of my league. But here's what you don't see. What looks like confidence is often just camouflage for insecurity. Women are masters of performance, not out of deception, but necessity. They're raised in a world that rewards appearance, praises presentation, and rarely pauses long enough to see what's underneath. So they built masks, personas, emotional armor dressed up as self-love. She tells you she's focusing on herself right now, but posts quotes about loneliness at 1 a.m. The signs are subtle, but they're there. And the mistake most men make? They believe the image. They pedestal the performance. They fall for the power she projects without questioning whether it's rooted or just rehearsed. What she secretly longs for is not a man who matches her mask. She wants a man who sees through it. That doesn't mean exposing her. It means holding your frame when she tests yours, not flinching when she tries to use her success, her independence, or her pride as shields. Because if you react to her projected power, you become another audience member in her one-woman show. But if you stay rooted, if you look at her and say nothing, just see her without needing to fix, impress, or respond, you trigger something deeper than attraction. You become the one person who didn't fall for the act. From a psychological angle, that's magnetic. Because behind the curated image is a woman wondering, can anyone see the real me and not leave? And when you answer that question, not with words but with calm, unwavering energy, you don't just stand out. You become the only man she can't perform around. Number 4, women obsess over men they can't predict. She's not thinking about the man who texts her every morning. She's not wondering about the one who poured his heart out by day 3. She's not replaying the guy who gave her everything before she even asked. She's thinking about the man she couldn't figure out, the one who moved like fog, close, then gone, present, then distant, not as a tactic, but as his nature. That's the weakness. A woman's emotional system locks onto mystery like a heat-seeking radar. And when she can't predict you, she can't forget you. She tells you she doesn't like games, but when you pulled back for 48 hours to focus on your goals, she watched every story you posted, twice. Women are driven by pattern recognition, emotional logic, emotional rhythm. And when you disrupt that rhythm, not with chaos, but with intentional unpredictability, you create a loop in her mind that doesn't close. That loop becomes an obsession. Not because you're being manipulative, but because she feels something she doesn't understand. Her mind is built to solve emotional puzzles. Predictability kills attraction. Certainty removes tension. But a man with purpose, boundaries, and emotional range, he becomes unpredictable naturally because he's not trying to impress, he's trying to become. You're unavailable when needed. You're warm when you earn it. You're focused when it matters. And none of it is for effect. It's just who you are. When a woman meets a man she can't decode, she's forced to feel. Not just think. Not just attest, but feel. Feel her doubt, her craving, her loss of control. And that's when she starts chasing. Not your validation, but your presence. Because she knows, when you show up, it means something. The predictable man is safe. But the man she can't predict? He becomes the one she watches in silence, long after he's gone. Number 5, she's drawn to men who say no. She tests you with a smile, a late-night invite, knowing you've got training at dawn, a playful guilt trip when you choose work over wine, a moment where your boundary and her desire collide. And in that moment, she's not just seeing what you'll do, she's measuring who you are. Women don't consciously admit this, but one of their deepest emotional weaknesses is this. They're irresistibly drawn to a man who can tell them no, without flinching, without apology, without anger. She jokes, "You're no fun anymore," after you say no to her impulsive plan. You just smile and go back to what matters. Most men fold at this point. They think keeping her interest means saying yes, being agreeable, avoiding friction. But the truth is, every time you say yes when you mean no, something in her contracts. Not because she's selfish, but because she stops feeling you. A man without boundaries doesn't activate her emotions. He dissolves into them. From a psychological standpoint, a woman doesn't want to lead. She wants to feel your leadership, not controlled, not dominance, just direction backed by conviction. And that direction is most clearly seen when you say no, when your purpose comes before pleasure, when your edge isn't dulled by her approval, when your line doesn't move, no matter how soft her tone is. That refusal, that centered, non-reactive rejection, it creates emotional tension. It tells her, "You're important, but not more important than my path." And that makes her respect you, even if she pushes harder, especially if she pushes harder. A man who says yes to everything disappears into the background. But the man who says no at the right moment, he becomes the anchor she didn't know she needed. Number 6, your emotional detachment hits harder than silence. She doesn't cry when you go quiet. She doesn't panic when you stop texting for a day. But when she feels your emotional detachment, when she senses that she's no longer inside your world, your mind, your nervous system, that's when it hits. Not immediately, but deeply. Most men confuse silence with strength. They think if they just stop responding, they're taking their power back. But silence without inner detachment is just performance. She still feels your emotional pull. She still knows she has you. It's only when your attention is gone, not just withheld, that her emotional system starts to unravel. She texts you something vague, hoping to re-engage. But this time, you don't even feel the urge to reply, not out of pride, out of peace. That's the shift. Not a reaction, not suppression, but genuine emotional disengagement. She's no longer the center of your energy. She's no longer the axis around which your thoughts spin. And that absence, it echoes, because she can't feel your need anymore. She doesn't sense the same invisible pull that once kept her tethered to your orbit. From a psychological lens, women respond to attention the way fire responds to oxygen. Even if you're not speaking, if your focus is still on her, she breathes easier. But remove that oxygen, not out of spite, but out of wholeness, and the fire dims. You didn't ghost her. You outgrew the need. You didn't punish her. You recentered your purpose. You didn't disappear. You just stopped orbiting. That's what breaks her frame. Not silence, indifference, because the man she could once emotionally pull is now anchored in something she can't reach. And that stillness, it stings more than any angry text ever could. Number 7. Her tests reveal more than her words. She doesn't say, "I want to see if you're strong." She says, "You probably talk to other girls too." She doesn't admit she's testing your frame. She says, "You never really cared, did you?" These aren't just comments, they're emotional sonar, little pings into your nervous system designed to provoke. Not because she hates you, but because she needs to know, can you hold still when I push? Every man gets tested. The weak ones take it personally. The reactive ones defend. But the rare man, grounded man, doesn't flinch. She tells you, you've changed. And in that moment, you realize she's hoping you didn't. From a psychological angle, female testing is subconscious pattern seeking. She wants to know if your confidence is real or situational, if your calm is centered or fragile, if your attention is grounded or needy. And here's the secret. She doesn't care what you say in response. She's not listening to your explanation. She's reading your energy. Most men try to pass the test by pleasing, clarifying, and softening their tone. But every time you bend, you signal weakness. Not emotional availability, emotional instability. The real play isn't to outsmart the test. It's to see it and stand still, not cold, not distant, just still, like a rock in the tide, like a man who knows who he is and doesn't perform to keep being chosen. And once she sees you're not moved by the push, not shaken by the bait, not stirred by the drama, she lowers the test and raises her respect. Because when you stop needing to pass her test, you become the man who sets the standard. Number 8. Her friends don't control the real game. She says, "My friends think you're distant." She says, "They told me I deserve more." You hear it as gossip, opinion, harmless noise. But underneath the surface, it's something else, a test by proxy. When she lets her friends into your relationship, she's not just relaying their words, she's watching your reaction. Most men try to please the circle. They become performative, softer, more agreeable. But the truth is simple. Her friends don't control her attraction. You do. If she's truly drawn to your energy, no amount of social pressure can override what her body feels when you enter the room. She brings up what her best friend thinks, but watches your face more than your answer. That's when you understand. She's not asking for approval. She's testing your sovereignty. She wants to see, are you swayed by opinion? Do you need to explain yourself to outsiders? Do you shrink when the collective disapproves? From a psychological lens, female groupthink is emotionally powerful but fragile. It only holds when the man they judge has no presence. But when you walk in fully grounded, fully still, fully unbothered, the room shifts. Even her most skeptical friend feels it. Not because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. The man who doesn't try to win them over becomes the one they can't define. You're not rude. You're simply unavailable for validation, and you didn't ask for it. And the woman who truly feels your depth, she'll ignore their voices to feel your gravity, because her friends don't sleep next to her. They don't make her feel safe at night. They don't challenge her to rise. Only you do. And once she feels that difference, she stops listening to them and starts watching you. Number 9. She wants leadership, not control. She pushes back when you make a decision. She challenges your tone, your timing, and your logic. And you start to think she doesn't want to follow anyone. But that's where most men get it wrong. She doesn't reject leadership. She rejects weakness masked as control. When a man leads from fear, a tight grip, rigid rules, over-explaining, it triggers her rebellion. But when you lead from vision, quiet certainty, strong direction, no need for applause, she follows without even realizing it. She tells you, "Don't tell me what to do." But 2 days later, she asks you to handle something she's overwhelmed by. That's not hypocrisy, that's biology. From an evolutionary lens, women are wired to test for competent leadership. They need to feel safe, but also inspired, secure, but also in motion. And only a man who leads himself first can lead her without force. The mistake men make is trying to control her behavior instead of embodying direction. They correct, instruct, and demand. But real masculine leadership never has to be loud. It's felt, it's absorbed, it's followed willingly. She resists when your actions don't match your words. But when your energy, choices, and silence all align, you don't need permission. You don't need her to agree. She either feels the current or she drifts. And if she drifts, you keep going. You don't chase. You don't adjust your path for comfort. Because your path is the point. She'll test it. But if it's real, if it's solid, clear, and purpose-driven, she'll eventually fall into rhythm. Because she doesn't want to be controlled. She wants to be led by a man who never needs to say he's leading. Number 10. She breaks first when you stay still. She starts the argument, then waits for your reaction. She goes cold, hoping you'll chase. She pulls back emotionally, not to leave, but to see if you'll come running. And when you don't, when you stay calm, still, and focused, that's when she breaks. Because what women don't say, but deeply feel, is this: the man who holds emotional stillness longer always wins the dynamic. She slams the door, expecting you to follow, but you don't. You stay seated, breathing through the fire. And now it's her silence that's loud. Most men react. They get pulled into the storm. They argue, plead, and prove. But when you hold still, not out of ego, but out of emotional clarity, you remove her fuel. And without that fuel, the test collapses. From a psychological standpoint, this isn't about detachment, it's about containment. When she pushes emotionally, she's scanning for cracks, not because she wants to break you, but because she needs to know you won't break yourself. Stillness doesn't mean shutting down. It means you feel everything, but you don't hand her the keys to your nervous system. You stand in the fire and let it pass through. You don't withhold love, you just don't perform for it. And when the dust settles, it's her, not you, who rethinks everything. Why? Because a man who doesn't move from his center forces her to find hers. She wanted to lead you into chaos. Instead, you led her back into calm. Not by force, not by words, but by staying unmoved when everything tried to shake you. And that's the truth no one tells you. The one who holds stillest holds the frame. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to chase her attention. You don't need to play games, decode texts, or guess what she's feeling. That's not your role anymore. Because now you see her clearly, not as the mystery you have to solve, but as the mirror you once got lost in. You used to think power was about control. Now you know it's about calm. You used to respond to every silence. Now, your silence holds more meaning than any reply. You used to try to win her back. Now, you've become the man who doesn't need to be chosen to know his value. And that shakes everything. She'll feel it first in the quiet, in the absence of your reaction. In the moment, she expects the old you and meets someone new, someone she can't manipulate, someone she can't define, someone she can't forget. Because now, your presence isn't free. Your energy isn't scattered. Your love isn't desperate. It's earned. And every weakness she once hid behind, every test, every pullback, every moment she thought she had the upper hand, it all crumbles the second she realizes you're no longer available to be conquered. You're not here to prove you're enough. You're here to build something so rooted, so masculine, so undeniable, that she either rises to meet it or watches you rise without her. You stopped chasing her attention the moment you realized she was drawn to your stillness all along.